Hello, with all of this Colleen Ballinger information going around, I came across a couple of videos that shocked me. They were worse than anything I'd heard so far. Colleen Ballinger is a comedian. She played a role called Miranda Sings, and initially she'd started off doing that on YouTube, and then she'd had so much success on YouTube that she ended up with a Netflix deal. Adam McIntyre was somebody who started talking publicly about his relationship with Colleen Ballinger. He'd known her when he was 13 years old, and he made a very long video about the ways in which he felt she'd taken advantage of him then. And I watched about half of it just because it was so long. I think I watched it for about an hour and a half. And I the way I felt at the end was that she didn't seem a very nice person, but then there are lots of people who aren't very nice out there. And I still didn't quite understand the level of hate, against her. And, who knows, maybe there was something in the other half of the video that was even worse than her just taking advantage of him and getting him to do work for free for her. Then she made an apology video where, she felt like she was the victim. She, throughout that video, talked about how she was being gossiped about and how unfair it was, how, the cancel culture now and how she was being cancelled. And I hoped that there was a good reason for how people were hating on her. And of course, if there was a good reason, then her apology video was pretty unfair and deluded, because it was all about herself, and obviously not feeling any responsibility towards anyone she'd hurt.
Hey, it's been a while since you saw my face. I haven't been doing so great, so I took a little break. So a lot of people are saying some things about me that aren't quite true. Doesn't matter if it's true though, just as long as it's entertaining to you. Right? You guys having fun? All aboard the toxic gossip train. You're chugging down the tracks of misinformation.
Today I'm pleased that she cancelled her tour. I think that we now need an end to what she was doing out there. I came across a couple of videos that really disturbed me. One was with someone called JoJo Siwa. She has her own YouTube channel, and she was just 13 in the video.
So what a JoJo's juice is every week I film a video and then I pour juice on my head. So I pour different juices on my head so I smell good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so today though, since you're on JoJo's juice, I'm not gonna pour your juice, you're gonna pour your juice on your head.
On you?
No.
On you?
I'm gonna pour it on you.
No, you're not!
Yes, I am.
I don't want you to. I don't trust your juice.
Yes, I am.
I don't trust any of your juices, JoJo.
Rock, paper, scissors.
I won!
Yeah, so you have to pour it on you.
No! JoJo, I don't trust your juices. I don't want your juices on me.
That was the rule.
Why on earth was she talking like this to this little girl?
JoJo,
Okay.
you cannot do that.
Why not?
That will entice all the people. You cannot be twerking out the body like that.
Well,
You popping the booty.
And for JoJo to have said she's aware of what's under her trousers, or pants as you say in the US, she said she was aware of that when she's in her own private space. The fact that she felt like she had to say that, it was a clear sign that Miranda was crossing a boundary here, but she didn't stop.
If you release all the air, you could poop, potentially. It could just plop out.
well,
You
only
can get
potential.
twerking and you go push it out and go.
It'll go.
You could.
Well, with my experiences, that has never happened before.
Okay, well that's because you're wearing pants. Have you ever taken the pants off and seen what's inside?
In public, no. On the toilet, yes.
And?
In my own privacy, yes.
And?
Some of the people are writing in the comments that she's a paedophile. Who knows? I find it odd that she had relationships with such young kids, that she was telling children of 13 that she was friends with them. But regardless of whether she is or isn't a paedophile, she abused her power.
Who taught you that you can pour your juices on other people, JoJo? That's not appropriate.
I'm not the lecturer!
Yes, you do. You're playing with handcuffs. You're twerking on other people.
I did not twerk on other people. I twerked on myself.
She's talking about things JoJo shouldn't yet know about. or maybe she's learnt them in sex education, but she won't have had her own experience of, or at least she shouldn't have. And so it seems to be that Miranda is telling us adults a joke at the expense of JoJo and all of JoJo's viewers who are going to be her age or younger even. If JoJo did understand what Miranda was talking about, or if she asked an adult who explained it to her, then that would have left her feeling surely, you know, pretty disturbed. On top of that, there's a show she does where a little boy is on stage.
I was curious, would you like to go on a date with me right now on stage?
I would absolutely love to. I love you, like...
Jeez! Just let me slip this on.
I have loved this woman forever.
And that's also really disturbing.
To hide our snack from the bears, we have to hide it in our clothes. So for example,
What?
there we go. And so now, watch this. We're on the date, James. It's really romantic. Oh, we're getting close and personal. Oh, but I'm so hungry, James. Hold on, I got a snack.
Was this in your...
What on earth is she doing? And it's interesting and very sad how no one stopped her. You hear laughter of adults in the audience. Underneath the video with JoJo in it, there are recent comments. They're saying her mum didn't do anything. Why didn't her mum do anything? And this is what I want to talk about today. The fact that this was 6 years ago and we're only just talking about it now. Why is that? The Netflix producers weren't saying anything. The public weren't speaking up and complaining about her. No one was doing anything. This just carried on and on, all of these really inappropriate things that Colleen was doing. And so I wanted to look at this because this isn't just an issue with celebrities. It's something that happens within families. And, you know, that there's a reason why abuse is allowed to carry on. And I think it's all about the power dynamic. A celebrity has a lot of power because they have a lot of popularity. A lot of people support them. And I think it's conditioned into us as humans, unfortunately, to have a certain amount of respect for somebody who has a degree of popularity. You know, when it comes to politics, it seems to be a little bit easier for people to lose that respect. You know, they know exactly what the person stands for. They either agree or they disagree. And I'm talking about in a democracy, of course, where you have the power to vote somebody in or out. That can create a lack of respect for the people who you don't agree with, and you're allowed to express that, you know, so other people can hear about it and you can feel like other people are on your side and there's some power in your argument. Or with a celebrity who has an adoring fan base, that can feel very different. When I put out Andrew Tate videos, I looked on YouTube for other videos with Andrew Tate in them because, you know, it would tell me something about him. Maybe I could use bits of footage of him. And what I found was that although under my videos about him, there were just a lot of negative comments about his behaviour from my viewers. There were the occasional trolls who were Andrew Tate followers. But other than that, there was just a lot of support for what I was saying about Andrew Tate. Then I looked at other videos across the internet and it was amazing how even when I saw footage that was so obviously repugnant, you know, where he was really, his behaviour was appalling, he was being really abusive, for example, to somebody who interviewed him from the BBC. What was fascinating was that underneath a video like that, there would just be positive comments. There would be a ton of people saying wonderful things, almost like he was a god that they worshipped. And there would be almost either none or almost no comments by people who didn't agree. And of course, you know, you can delete comments from people. It could be something to do with that, but I don't think so because you know, those comments were allowed through. There were just very few of them. Part of that will be the algorithm, that people who support Andrew Tate would receive the videos that put him in a good light, or that supposedly put him in a good light. But I think that also there's more to it than that. There's more to it than the comments just being deleted as well, because some of them were allowed, and so because those ones were allowed, it puts into question the idea that other ones, you know, that didn't agree with the video weren't allowed. I think that there would have been people like me who saw the video and totally disagreed with the comments underneath it. So an atmosphere can be created where you feel like if you speak your opinion, you're going to be bullied. You're going to be told that's not okay. You're not going to fit in with that crowd, and, you know, you're going to become a scapegoat. And so you have to keep your mouth shut. Milgram was a Jewish psychologist who wanted to understand how the Holocaust could have happened. Milgram hypothesized that Germans were going to be more likely to follow orders without thinking than Americans. He believed that that was how the Holocaust happened because he thought that there was something about the German culture that encouraged that. He started off getting American students to participate in his study, and the idea was he was then going to move on to using Germans and he was going to compare the data. But he never ended up doing that because the data from the Americans was so disturbing that he didn't feel like he needed to carry on with the experiment. He had thought that Americans were all about freedom, about doing their own thing, individuation, you know, and that was a very different kind of vibe to the German one. What he actually found was that Americans conformed in a way he hadn't expected. The participants were told that they were going to be conducting an exercise based on memory, that each one of them was going to teach someone a series of words, and that person had to be able to remember them correctly. That if they didn't, if they got one wrong, the participant was then supposed to be giving them an electric shock. They were told that the electric shock wouldn't do the other person any physical harm, but it might hurt them. In reality, the other person was an actor, so they weren't really experiencing electric shocks. They just had to pretend they were. And by the time the electric current had got as high as 75 volts, because, you know, it was gradually going up every time they pressed the button, by the time it was 75 volts, the actor would scream, you know, so they would show that they're in a lot of pain. As it rose higher to 150 volts, they would be begging the participant to stop, and the participants would mostly keep going. He found that 60% of those participants would do as they were told. They showed complete obedience. And he also found that 79% of the participants who continued after the actor had screamed would go all the way up to 450 volts. By 330 volts, the actor would say he couldn't go on. He'd be talking about how his heart felt strange, he'd be absolutely desperate, and he would completely stop responding to any questions from the participant. And yet, you know, as I've said, by this point, 79% of participants continued to shock that person simply because they were told to. Another thing that was interesting was that most of the participants were showing signs of being very anxious. They were trembling, they were stuttering, they were biting their lips, they were digging their fingernails into themselves, groaning. So it was traumatic for them, but they carried on anyway. And what Milgram found was how compliant somebody was when you asked them to do something small was a good predictor of how compliant they were going to be when you asked them to do something much bigger. And that was clear from, you know, from the data that 79% of them after 150 volts carried on right to the end. So I found this really interesting. I mean, for Milgram, it was very depressing news, and I think for the world really, because it showed that the Holocaust wasn't something that could only have happened in Germany. You know, it showed that unfortunately human nature is that people tend to follow a leader and not ask questions, you know, to do as they're told, no matter how much pain they might inflict on other people. And that not only that, but that they don't have to have any malice towards those people to still be able to allow abuse to go on. If we think about this in relation to Colleen Ballinger, it kind of makes sense that the mother doesn't speak up. It was her responsibility to have spoken up. But it makes me think that maybe this was what was going on, that she had this feeling that she had to obey because this person, Colleen Ballinger, had more power, and that had been conditioned into her. And it makes me think about, you know, what that means for families, how you might have one parent who's really abusive and another parent who views the first parent as being the powerful one, and so allows them to abuse the child or the children in the family. They don't stand up for that child. And I hear about this all the time from my clients, you know, that they grew up in a household where one parent was abusive and the other one never did anything to stop it. And it's very, very difficult for that child who's now an adult to come to terms with that, because it's not clear that the parent who didn't stand up for them, it's not clear that they're an abuser. And you know, they think of them as the nice parent, the one that did love them, that did care about them, but then they've got to somehow deal with the fact that that parent didn't stop the abuse. So therefore, what are they supposed to feel towards them? Should they feel like they were the nice one, thank God they were there? Or should they feel really angry that they didn't do their job and protect them? And was that just as bad as the person who did abuse them, standing by and not doing anything about it? In the UK, we have a law called joint enterprise, and that's when if one person or more people commit an offence, the people who are considered to be bystanders, who encourage or support the offence, can get the same jail sentence as the people who commit the offence. There's been a lot of debate around that, around how culpable these people should be. Were they really encouraging this to happen, or were they just standing by and too scared to help? But I think it's interesting anyway that right now that is where the law stands. That if you encourage it, if you support it, then you are deemed equally responsible for it. So if you think about that in a family, if you have one parent who's abusive and the other parent who tells the child, oh, just be quiet, don't make him angry or her angry, you know, just do as you're told. Be nice, be polite to your mum or to your dad. If they're doing that, or if they're coming to you and telling you off on behalf of the abuser, if they're telling you to go and apologise to the abuser, any of those things could be interpreted as them supporting and encouraging the abuse of the child. And so therefore, their own behaviour could be seen as just as abusive. You know, so, but it's interesting how often that happens, and how many parents out there probably don't know or don't see themselves in that way. They might feel like they have no choice. You know, they have to, they have to take that role on because they can't stop the abuse, because that person is too powerful and there's nothing they can do about it. They might see things in that way. I know that there can be difficulties, for instance, with splitting up and thinking that your child is going to have to spend some time with the abusive parent sometimes. And, you know, and so for that reason, many people stay, which, you know, I don't recommend doing. If you don't stay, the child has somewhere safe to go. They have somebody who they can be around who isn't part of that abusive cycle. But not speaking up when these things happen because you're afraid, that's something that I think is really important to overcome. You know, to look at it as, okay, this makes sense, to forgive yourself for it, but it's important to be able to shake that off when you're responsible for somebody else, and to look at what's stopping you and to get help with that. And to do that, you need to question what it is you're so afraid of, what is keeping you in that position of giving this other person so much power and making yourself and the victim so powerless. Next, you need to challenge yourself to changing that behaviour. You know, when you understand that this is why you're doing it, you need to start to find another solution. You know, I'm afraid I'm going to get told off if I speak up. So, okay, does that mean I now stay silent and the abuse continues? What am I going to do about it? And maybe it will help, again, you know, to talk that over with a therapist, to, you know, work out together what is the best plan of action to protect your child or your animal and, of course, yourself. And if you are somebody who has experienced a childhood like the one I've described, and you're really struggling with your feelings and you're confused and you feel guilty for the person who didn't stand up for you because you can see weakness in them or fear in them, you're allowed to be angry with them, whether they're still alive or not. You know, you're allowed to feel angry that they didn't do their job as your parent and protect you from abuse. And I think it's good to be able to get to that point where you can feel angry, because if you are at that point, it means you've accepted what actually happened. You're not in denial, you're not kidding yourself, you know, you're not telling yourself that they really did do the best by you, or that they really wanted to do the best by you and they couldn't have helped it. There was nothing they could have done differently. You know, that then leaves you with a bit of a lie, you know, because there was, whether they recognized it or not, there was something that they could have done differently. And to be able to feel happy, we have to be able to accept reality. If we keep deluding ourselves about things, then we can never actually come to terms with what happened. So I hope that was helpful. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And can you please keep asking me what videos you want me to make? I find that incredibly helpful. You know, sometimes somebody puts in a name, you know, in the comment section, or they email me and it's a name I haven't heard about because maybe nothing's happening in this country. And then I look up that name and realize that there's a whole story I didn't know about. So please do keep that up. And if you email me links of videos you think I should watch about this person or this situation, then that's super helpful. And timestamp it, then that is, you know, you're just the ideal viewer. and enormously helpful. So thank you in advance to anyone who does that. Also, even if I haven't put out a video for a long time, please still do that, because sometimes if I haven't managed to get one out for a while, I'll have a look and see, is there anything to really talk about right now? And if there's something that lots of people are talking about that's really relevant to the channel, then that encourages me to just hurry up and get back onto YouTube. So please do keep doing that. I'll see you in the next video.